It's a pleasure for me to introduce to you David Sidebottom, Director of Transport Focus. This is a non-governmental group focusing on influencing decisions on behalf of passengers to secure improvements. They secure qualities for passengers across operators. Sidebottom has been with Transport Focus since 2006. He will talk about different demands for different modes of operations. What do rail customers demand in the future? What is the public perception of rail travel now compared to the years before, prior to liberalization? And what about ticketing and travel planning? What are the potentials in new technologies? And Mr. Sidebottom is from Manchester. He is a fan of Manchester City.
Yeah. Thank you.
The floor is yours,
and you are
heartily welcome.
Thank you. First of all, thank you to the Forum for inviting Transport Focus to speak today. It's a great privilege to be here. It's my first time in Norway, so that's a great privilege as well. And what I'll talk about over the next 15-20 minutes, we'll cover a few things about Transport Focus, who we are and what we do, looking at Britain's railways and the challenges and opportunities that are facing passengers, government and train operators and Network Rail who run the infrastructure. I will look at some of the things that we do through the research that we undertake with passengers, looking at what they want to see improve in the future, how satisfied they are with rail services across Great Britain at the moment, and looking at some of the future thinking as the railway starts to rebuild itself. And we're very interested in how passengers get a better sense of a relationship and trust with the product they're buying from train operators. So first of all, Transport Focus, we are an organisation. While we're independent, we are set up by British government. Our rules and regulations are written down in law. We've been around in various forms since 1947, I think it is. And more recently, we've taken on new responsibilities to represent the interests of bus, coach and tram passengers in England, outside of London. And about a year ago, we were given extra responsibilities to represent the people who use our strategic road network, the motorway system. So that's private motorists as well as the people who drive trucks, the big logistics companies who are moving freight and cargo around our road network. That's a very interesting thing for us because we're learning things about how we capture views of road users and use that in the way that we capture the views of rail, bus, coach and tram passengers. And we have a very simple motto at the organisation, at Transport Focus. We want to be useful, and we do that through lots of research with passengers. What I talk about is what passengers tell us through our research and the contacts they have with the organisation. It's not my personal view of how the railway should be run for passengers. And we do that through gathering views, through big pieces of research and using that to take out on the road, talk to government, talk to operators, and talk to those who want to listen about how they can better use our work to influence decisions and spend money on the railway. We're a consumer organisation. We're not one mode of transport over another, very much focusing on the people who use rail or bus and making sure they get the best possible deal for their journey. Now, at the moment, Britain's railways are booming, and I'm hoping not going to steal too much of Nigel's thunder in a few minutes. The number of people being carried on Britain's railway has doubled in the last 25 years or so. But in return for that, we're now seeing record levels of investment from government, spending billions of pounds on renewing the railway, new projects, new schemes, bringing in new trains as our crowded commuter services get to see the much welcomed addition of new carriages and new seats. And as we measure, passenger satisfaction at the moment is 83% with services. So it's all good news, isn't it? Not quite so sure. This is an image of some of the new trains that will be coming into London in the southeast. That's the multicoloured one that's pulling away from the older trains there. So again, more capacity, more seats. And in the north of England, where I am from, the old Class 142 Pacer train is being phased out with its bus-style seating there, and that has done a great job for lots of railways across Wales, the north of England and the southwest, but its days are numbered, sadly, or greatly. And that's being replaced by some more modern, purpose-built commuter metro-style trains over the coming years. So much needed, much welcomed investment. And we're seeing that being replicated in new lines being open. The picture at the top is from the Borders Railway, which reopened in, I think, September of last year in southern Scotland, a line that was closed many years ago through the cuts to Britain's Railway. And the picture at the bottom is Birmingham New Street. Some people don't like it, lots of people love it. It's very much a train station with lots of shops and retailing opportunities around it. Very futuristic, very light, very bright. Lots and lots of money has been sunk into rebuilding that. It's much needed. It's a great environment. And lots of rebuilding of the infrastructure. As I say, billions of pounds are being spent, taxpayers' money and fare payers' money, passengers' money is being spent on rebuilding the railway. Better track, better signalling, station improvements, and new trains. I think the government claims something like £36 billion is being spent on Britain's railway to rebuild it and make it fit for purpose for the future. So that's the good stuff. What we're seeing, though, are some of the effects of rebuilding a railway around passengers, increasing numbers of passengers making more journeys. And that's causing problems. Some of the images there are about crowding at London Bridge Station. Some of the images there are from about a year or so, just over a year ago, when overrunning engineering caused problems for passengers. So all this goodwill, money being sunk into the railway to improve, for many passengers, they're not quite seeing the benefits just yet. Increasingly, more passengers are using the railway. We're seeing more and more crowded trains, particularly coming into London and the South East, but not exclusively. We're seeing problems in Manchester and Leeds and Sheffield, the big city regions, as more people use the railway. And sadly, and it may be the same in Norway, I don't know, but any bad news on the railway makes the headlines. Again, some of the images here, the picture at the top, you can see about a year ago now, some of the crush at London Bridge Station, where lots of development work in London is going on, made headline news in London and the South East. This is an image that I captured only on Saturday. Our rail regulator publishes regular information about delays and disruption on the railway, and for some reason the figures which come out every month, it made headline news once again. So Britain's railway is always in the news, not always for a good reason, sadly. So why is all that important? Well, it's particularly important because Britain's rail passengers now fund about 70% of the running cost of Britain's railway, and that's shifted in recent years. Mainly because the people who pay the commuter fares, the regulated fares in the country, have been paying well beyond the price of inflation, and that money is being used by government to invest back in the railway. There is very limited competition between train operators on Britain's railway. There is some on the East Coast, from London King's Cross up to York and up to Scotland, but it's still quite limited. And as you'll see from our research, passengers still have quite a poor rating of value for money from the price of their ticket. So what are we doing about it? Well, we're keen to make sure that the views of the passenger influences government, train operators, Network Rail, in terms of how money is spent and decisions are made. This is a piece of research we do every 4 or 5 years to ask passengers what they want to see improve on their journey. A whole list of things, about 30-odd factors. And the top 5 factors generally stay the same, but we've seen a subtle shift in how that's being voted for by passengers. The number one priority for improvement is better value for money from their ticket. It comes across loud and clear from particularly rail commuters. Then things about getting a seat on a train, again particularly from commuters. And punctuality of trains used to be the number one priority. It's slipped down to number 3 now. More frequency. And the point there at number 5 about when there are delays on the railway, how is that managed? How can it be better managed to give me the information I need to inform my journey? I've circled the point at number 10 there is about better Wi-Fi and connectivity on trains. That came in from nowhere over the course of the last few years. I suspect it'll be higher up the list when we do this work again. And the reason that's important is about people want to stay connected. And I think it's particularly important how the train industry can get information to individuals, get to know passengers as individuals, and keep them informed during delays. And I'll explain why that's important as I go through the rest of my presentation. The big piece of work we do twice a year is the National Rail Passenger Survey. This is very much a survey of passengers, asking them what they think about the journey they've just done, the moment. It's very transactional. It's asked them to rate the station, the train, the journey they've just done, how they've bought the ticket, a whole list of questions. And we hear from about 60,000 passengers every year. We do some work in the spring and some work in the autumn, and we publish all this work. And it's increasingly, over the last 10 years, it's become much more embedded in the culture of the railway. The new rail franchises that the government is letting for new train operators, there are targets in there now for train companies to improve passenger satisfaction over the course of the franchise. So that focuses the mind of those people who are running that franchise. Bonuses, not my bonus sadly, but the bonuses of the train company executives and Network Rail. There are targets there. They encourage their senior directors to improve passenger satisfaction. And it's an official statistic. So in Britain, it's a big thing in terms of what this survey does and how it's run. I won't go through this information, but it just gives you a sense of the individual information we can publish. We can rank the data by train company, by type of journey, by station, by geography. There's a whole heap of information and data in there from the 60,000 passengers. What I'll try to show on this chart here, and I won't go through it in great detail, but the line at the top, the black line, is overall passenger satisfaction over the last 16, 17 years or so that we've been covering this information. And generally speaking, passenger satisfaction with journeys has been increasing gradually to about 83% as we measured recently. But that, of course, doesn't give the full picture. There's lots of information beneath that. Satisfaction amongst rail commuters is generally less, about 10 percentage points less. Business and leisure journeys are a few more percentage points higher, sometimes hitting around the mid-90s. But the two lines at the bottom, the yellow line and the sort of darker blue line, are the two bits of the industry that we want to see improve. Value for money ratings, not the cost of the ticket. We ask passengers to rate the value for money of their journey, needs to improve, and it's been gradually sort of keeping fairly stable over the last few years. And particularly what passengers feel when their train is delayed. How is it managed? How they get information? That's the real Achilles heel of the industry, if you like. It needs to do a lot better on that, and things haven't improved dramatically for passengers. Just want to show you this quickly. This chart here shows what drives satisfaction. So we do some analysis of all the passengers who say they're satisfied or very satisfied with the journey. And the thing that drives that is the punctuality of the service. Get that right, get the basics right, passengers are satisfied. The other chart here are those people who say they're dissatisfied. And the time and time again, the thing that drives dissatisfaction is how the train company manages delay. Back to my earlier point, get information to me that's tailored to my journey. It's not easy, and maybe you do it very well in Norway, I don't know. But in Britain, there's still a long way to go to improve that. Trust. When an organisation fails, we don't trust it. And I think, sadly, there are examples like Mr. Blatter where it's very hard to rebuild trust and rebuild a relationship with an organisation. In simple terms, we looked about 2 years ago at the issue of trust. We wanted to know how rail passengers feel about their train company, bearing in mind that for many passengers, whether you be a commuter, you may have little choice in terms of who your train company is. So we did some work with passengers and published this just under 2 years ago now. And it's more to do with relationship, what they think of the brand of the train company, bearing in mind we've got 20-something different train companies who carry passengers in Britain. As part of this work, we asked passengers to sense their positivity about the British rail industry in comparison to other markets. And broadly speaking, in terms of looking at recommendation and how they feel about the rail industry, it's on a par with airlines, so it's not bad. So quite positive. Not quite as good as supermarkets, who are very brand conscious and doing a lot of work in Britain to understand me as a consumer. They know what I buy. I get regular reminders from my supermarket and stores when it's my wedding anniversary and when it's my birthday. So they're doing a great job. Of course, Britain's most favourite industry is our National Health Service. Nothing can go wrong with the National Health Service. It's a great and respected industry, but a lot stronger than banking and the energy sector, which has taken a real hit in the UK over recent years in terms of what it's done, some dodgy deals and some bad financing. I won't propose to go through all this in great information, but this is the breakdown of the train operators as ranked by trust by rail passengers. And what's particularly interesting is these figures down here. This is looking at our National Rail Passenger Survey. So we're asking passengers two different things. One about the day-to-day journey, how you feel about it, and more about how you feel about the business, how do you trust it, what's your relationship like. And the top 5 or 6 businesses in our trust league table and our passenger satisfaction league table are broadly the same. They're doing the basics very well. They're delivering a punctual, reliable service. They're getting to know their passengers quite well and offering them good deals and better information. And as we go down the list of train operators, we tend to see where some of the problems are towards the bottom, and it's particularly around London and South East commuter train operators. Very little interaction with the passenger, it's very transactional, no real interaction with staff, it's through automatic ticket gates, there's no guards on the train, it's very depersonalised. So it's interesting to see this, and that grey block in the middle, there's lots of people who want to be won over. That's what we understand by this. They want to have a relationship with a train operator, particularly in terms of better deals and when things go wrong. And this, I think, sums up quite nicely that this pyramid here could apply to any good business, and it's very true for the work we did with rail passengers. There is no point a train company trying to do something fantastic and build this loyalty and trust if it can't get the basics right at the base of this pyramid. Deliver the basics to me, punctual, reliable service where I can get good value for money and get a seat, and then slowly build on that from there. And I'd like to say that actually this is being used more and more now in the way that the government is letting new franchises for the railway. The people who are bidding for the franchises come to talk to us, and they want to understand how they can do this better when they win, or hopefully win, that new franchise. And just a couple of final slides before I finish off. This is, again, a bit more analysis of this trust work that we've done. And in simple terms, passengers are saying, you've got to maintain this punctual, reliable service for me. I broadly trust you to do it, but you've got to make sure you keep that. But in this corner here, these are the things they want to see improve. And some of the comments that we see are very sort of quite personal, treat me fairly, look after me, be on my side. Things that shall we say, train operators have not been doing very well for many years because it's not been their focus of attention. And hopefully this work will start to shift that, and the way that the government sets out the new rail franchises, sets the targets in those franchises, will start to focus the minds of the people running the businesses on those things. And we're starting to see that in the last year, 18 months. So, thinking about the future, just as I sort of finish off now, very clear point from passengers that the industry needs to be truthful in what it says, very clear, consistent explanation when things go wrong. This is particularly true of what's happening in London and the South East at the moment. There are major delays and disruption while London's railway is being rebuilt. 26% of Britain's rail passengers come into and out of London. It's a huge amount of people. It's a big driver of the economy. And at the moment, many passengers are being delayed and disrupted, and there's no real sense of that big apology. It's all being set against, well, we're making it better for the future, which is great, but they've got to do something about the here and now. Better communication, better transparency and information to me about how my train performs. I was looking at the NSB website before I came across, and I thought it was quite good, the way the information on real-time running and punctuality is shown on that particular website. Do a lot more work with the people who work on stations, on trains, to empower them, to apologise, to sort complaints out there and then. And thinking about how you can use technology. The railway is starting to get a sense of this now, but the one thing it really needs to do now is embrace smarter technology in ticketing. Not plastic cards, whatever the solution might be in the future, but something that tells them something about me, how I travel. When things go wrong, you can get an instant apology to me. We're starting to see small examples appear now, and I'm very hopeful that in the next 5 years to 10 years, we'll see a much better sense of the railway understanding me as an individual customer and passenger. So in summing up, the core product is still vitally important. Passengers tell us very loud and clear they want a frequent, punctual service where they can get a seat and it delivers good value for money. That's the base of that pyramid I was showing you earlier. Deliver that and I'll start to believe in you and start to want to become a better customer of yours, perhaps make more journeys, make more recommendations to friends and to family. Get those things right and build those things up, and we'll start to see more satisfied passengers making more journeys and improving those key priorities for improvement about better value for money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.